the European Jews, the Jews who say they are Jews, who have lied to the world to make people think that the Jews or the white Jews or the so-called Israelites built the pyramids. The white Jews, the European Jews, did not build the pyramid, and the black Jews or the Hebrews, the real Hebrews of the Bible, they did not build the pyramids either. So these are these lies that we have to confront, because many would approach us when we say we are black Hebrews or Hebrew Israelites or of the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews. And they would say, oh, so you believe, that the Jews built the pyramids. No, we know that they did not. Right? The Jews did not. The European Jews wasn't even there in the conception that they are here today. So no, they did not do that. Right? But what the Hebrews, who were Ethiopic, Hamo-Shemitic, Afro-Asiatic peoples, they repaired. The truth is that the Hebrews, part of their hard bondage, right, as it says, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar and in brick and in all manner of service in the field, right? Just like today, right? In this spiritual Egypt, you find the same correspondence. Well, folks, don't even have time for their heart and their mind to even observe a Shabbat as a Shabbat, because they have to make ends meet, right? Because in this spiritual Egypt, right, and that's where you get that whole pyramid on the dollar from, right? In this spiritual Egypt, people have to work. They have to work 20 jobs, right? Just to, buy a loaf of bread. I mean, because it's not that bad in that sense yet, but there's no doubt, right, about it, that as time goes on and as the signs reveal themselves, things are getting worse and not better. So I wanted just to state on the record, right? I mean, here's in the jewelry and the crafts. I want to save this one right here, a part of a teaching and discussion that we were having before, right, from our Torah studies and the studies of the Torah, the Rastafari Sabbath studies, sabbatical studies. This is one of the areas that our people, that the Apiriu, the Ipru, right, the Ibrawiyan, right, that they labored in ancient Kemet. And now that we have more access to a lot of the art and the facts, and don't have to rely on second and third hand false fake paintings, religious paintings that are used in religious storybooks, which are nothing but lies. I mean, they are strictly speaking nothing but lies, right? And it took a while for a lot of these pictures. I remember this particular pic right here that I saw years ago, right? And it was just like in a black and a white, so it was a Xerox, back in the day, Xeroxing. It was a Xerox copy, right? And in this particular, these particular scenes right here, I remember people would argue because we couldn't see the color, right? And they say, well, it looked, how it would look in black and white, where if you understand black, white, and color, if you could see color in black and white, that way there that you can look at it and you can kind of tell, you have a sense about it. But some people would argue against it because the programming was so strong. They'll say, no, those are not black people. You understand? And they will even say, look, you see these guys right here? They have blonde hair. See, this is before we knew that many tribes in Africa and Asia, that one region over there is the holy region, Afro-Asia, so forth and so on, that this is a custom that many ones do, right? And there's many things that black folks do with their hair. I mean, but let's not even go there, with their hair. But we were coming out of slavery or enslavement, and the enslavement was 10 times worse than ancient so-called Mitzrayim or Kemet or ancient Egypt. But the key word that is used really needs to be brought out, and that is bondage, right? They had them work in, they were all manner of work right here. Where's that pic right here where I think they had, from one of the sites had put together this, very accurate and appropriate. You can see some of the fake pictures here and there, so forth and so on. I think it's this one right here. So we see this still right here, this slide right here, this slide right here. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage. Bondage means service. Now, what's interesting is that the bondage of the ancient Hebrews was different, but was a type, but was distinct and different than the enslavement of so-called black people or lost sheep, the lost black sheep of the house of Israel in the Americas and the Caribbean. It was far different. You see, we had stocks and bonds, right? Stocks and bondage, Wall Street, chattel slavery, so forth and so on. This was not the condition, right, of the historical Hebrews. Yes, I'm going to say that, historical Hebrews. You see, because once we put the facts in the proper context, we begin to recognize we have the evidence for the scriptures right before us. When we really start to, pick sense out of nonsense, instead of calling it slavery, that the Israelites were enslaved, or the Jews, because there was no Jew in Exodus. There's no Jew. There's only jewelry. And we know that the Hebrews also worked in that particular craft or that particular field or that particular service or that particular industry, right? It's like we took care of other people's children. Something similar. There's a lot of similarities in our experience 400 years later. But Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 15 to 68 will disabuse you of any illusions, right, that you might have that what occurred to our ancestors, right, thousands of years ago, right, with the bondage. See, the difference was this, that the Israelites did not, the Israelites did not go into Egypt as captives. So when you get that false narrative, and they'll show you some archaeology of various different other tribals who were defeated by the ancient Kemites, they'll say, oh, that's what they did to the Hebrews. They had us in bondage like that. And they're not even properly reading the facts. So they're not a good witness. See, even the Bible, when it says that we're not to be false witnesses, right? How can we be false witnesses about what we are reading in ancient Egypt and not seeking to really find the truth about it in order to tell a false narrative, right? Like when they say that the Jews built the pyramids, or that the Exodus happened in the time of Ramses, because in the Bible, there's a verse here that says Ramses. So that was their way of making believe, as Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 says. Right? He says, woe to those Jews who call themselves Jews by not, but do lie, are the synagogue of Satan. They are an obstacle to the truth, and they have been an obstacle to the truth, because people will believe their lies. Even right now, when we show ones the art and facts, they still have a lot of very interesting yet disturbing things to say. This is the evidence. This was the evidence that many of our ancestors were not privy to. They only had to see, they couldn't see this picture for Exodus, in Exodus, where it says that Moses came out and he saw the Egyptians beating one of the Hebrew, the Apiru, right? And what he had did. They don't show you this picture, right? They don't show you these sort of pictures, right? Or at least when we saw these sort of pictures, we saw them in black and white. Right. And many of them, even the ones in color, they do something funny with the color. And we've touched on that before, how they make they lighten up the colors, or they do kind of these little crazy things to make them seem less, for lack of a better word, black. So the sin, the error, right, is on those who lie against the truth. But there's no lie that can truly stand up to the truth and to the evidence. But I wanted to actually just make this one about the pyramids. I wanted to put a word out there on the record that the Jews didn't, the white Jews didn't build the pyramids. I'm going to make that the first time. The white Jews, the European Jews, but neither did the Hebrews, the black Hebrews, the Hebrews, the Afro-Shemitic Hebrews, the Como-Shemitic, neither neither did our ancestors. But what we did and what our ancestors, some of our ancestors worked on, because they worked in different, it's all manner, right? All different kinds of work and it's like today, we have our inheritance over there, waiting for us. We're over here busying ourselves in all sort of other industries, occupations, and preoccupations. We're under enemy occupation. So see, this is one of the fake pictures they show you right here. And they put the pyramids in the background, right? But on other ones, they kind of try to make you believe that the European or the white Jews who are converts, right, and have no direct relationship to the Lion of the tribe of Judah, make believe, right? And here's the jury, right? In the jury, right? But we didn't build the pyramids. Our ancestors didn't build the pyramids. And it's about time that we just, rebuke that lie. That lie was not even our lie. That lie was the Jews who call themselves Jews. That was a way they tried to make believe around the turn of the 18th and 19th, from the 18th and 19th century. And that lie has been thoroughly rebuked in the 20th century by such notables amongst our people and the late, may John have mercy on his soul, Dr. Ben Yohanan and, Dr. John Henrik Clark and other, master teachers concerning a black conscious or black consciousness Egyptology, right? Or Kemetism, if you please. And we would highly recommend that, for those who are new to these studies. And yes, they say some harsh things for those who are, Bibleators, who look at the Bible, who worship the Bible as a God, instead of deriving the truth by reading and study and searching out for the evidence that backs up whatever their belief or opinion is. You know what I mean? Because these lies have really damaged humanity and continue to damage humanity and the way forward. Keep us stuck in a frozen psychological state or going backward or believing lies and not being free. Anyway, that's what I wanted to touch on right here, and give thanks for your attention, brothers and sisters. Once again, the white Jews didn't build the pyramids, right? And neither did the black Jews. But what the black Jews did that the so-called white Jews didn't do is that we did repair a lot of the ancient monumental structures and other things as part of the hard bondage, right? That, our people endured. But the bondage in ancient Egypt should not be confused with the curses for disobedience that have afflicted and still continue to adversely afflict our people and the lost sheep of the house of Israel, even in the present time. And those curses for disobedience, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 15 to verse 68. Where in verse 68, he prophetically says that basically as it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the latter days, that we will return again, right, to Egypt, right, and into a type of a spiritual Egypt,